Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so today we are starting with the full-on exploration guides. At some point I still need to squeeze in the final behemoth boss guide, but now we are on 8.21, and as always I know some of you are in a rush or just like to take a screenshot of kind of like a summary version of these notes. So here they are. We have a little quick write-up. Don't worry, I will show this at the end again. Obvious disclaimer, there will be other champions that are great for it as well. I can't possibly have tested all of them. I don't know all interactions in the game, or I haven't, again, stumbled across them. So this is kind of like a personal list of what I think would work best. And there will definitely be plenty of other champions that can do these fights. And I'll try to explain the base principles of each of these path and boss fights the best I can. And we'll bring this up yet again, so, you don't need to rush to take the screenshot or pause the video. I will show it again at the end. But here we are. So we're just going to start, as always, from left to right. We're going to go over every single path in a short kind of like version of it, and then we're going to take a look at the boss fights. So this first fight is effectively the Tech, Cav, or Thronebreaker EQ nodes. We have shock vulnerability and high voltage combined with fighting dirty. So each time a tech attacker inflicts power drain, burn, or lock on the defender, you inflict shock passive that does very little damage, but it does unlock shock vulnerability and lets you do 200% damage there. And additionally, we have fighting dirty, so you kind of want opponent to be shocked, otherwise they're going to go unblockable. Clean slate makes it slightly harder, where opponents go debuff immune after their special attacks, but in most cases, using majority of the champions, the debuff immunity will only last, well, for a split second, because you'll have 2 or more debuffs on them. And the last one just gives them some combat power rate, which really isn't that big of a problem. So what you do here is, obviously, you bring in Black Widow Deadly Origins or your tech champions. So your Nimrods, your Warlock will work just fine, your Hulkbuster, Omega Sentinel with Nimrod synergy also works fantastic here, because then they apply those passive shocks on themselves as they use special attacks. And it is quite helpful to access those passive shocks because they cannot get shrugged off. The things and fights to note on this path here largely would be the Havoc fight, because obviously Havoc has a massive energy resistance, and also if you do not have an armor up, you will suffer if you shock Havoc. So you do want to bring something like Hulkbuster, like Nimrod here, where you just want to either power through that Havoc's energy resistance or have also a fair amount of physical damage that Havoc cannot mitigate. But if you also have the access to shocks, obviously then everything's going to go great. Just make sure that you do have somebody with an armor up, because otherwise you're going to die immediately. Other than that, there's not much to be wary of in this lane. Moving on to the next one, we have Academic Constitution. This is basically, again, the same thing from Cav EQ or Thronebreaker EQ, where science champions reduce defenders' poison potency by 85%. Also, every time you dex or parry, you purify all poisons from you, you gain a ton of furies, and that's kind of awesome, right? So it's basically just bring in science champions and you're gonna have a good time, or at least reasonably fine time. So use your Scorpions, use your Immortal Abominations, your Red Hulks, your whatever are the highest ranked science champions. At large, they will work here just fine. Be aware that there is a mojo, so ideally you do want somebody with like full-on buff immunity, or like Mr. Negative or something that is a great mojo counter. But other than that one, there's not too much going on. I suppose only one that can kind of be really annoying is Annihilus, but besides that, it should be fairly fine. Just bring in a team of science champs. Moving on to path number 3, we have Tactical Skateboard. And here the entire idea is that you throw a heavy attack at your opponent, and once you do, you're going to be doing a ton of damage for each unique buff. So if you have like Odin, for instance, 3 unique buffs from the get-go, then after your heavy attack, you're going to be doing 150 damage extra. Now there are Nerves of Steels and Obstination Charge, so it will be slightly harder for you to parry them, but in general, it's just, again, fairly straightforward lane. We'll bring in your Cosmic Champions with many buffs as possible, bring in like Odin for pre-fights, and your guys will do a ton of extra damage. There's nothing too crazy on the path. I suppose Darkhawk can be kind of annoying, but if you use Odin himself or any Cosmic Champion that can deal with auto block like Gore or anyone with Through Strike, you'll be fine. And yeah, it's a relatively straightforward path, one of the easier ones, I would say, overall. Then we have this Henchman, which is arguably the easiest here, especially if you use Scorpion. And this is basically a villain path. And the entire idea of this lane is that you just want to parry once in between every time you allow your opponent to use special attack. So don't be overly aggressive. Just parry after every opponent's special attack and you will be fine. You have parry vulnerability here to increase your damage output, which is awesome. And all the villains will be able to purify those calcify petrifies that you will get once opponent throws special attack. Obviously, the name of the game is do not let opponent reach 3 debuffs on you, or they're going to be unblockable, at which point you can't parry anymore, and the fights kind of like go downhill. But bringing in any villain champions really work just fine here, so you can bring in your Apox, your Diablos, or whatnot. But yeah, Scorpion worked absolutely fantastic here, so keep that in mind, and do not stress too much about anything else. Just make sure that you land a parry with the villain every time you allow opponent to use special attack. And meanwhile, you'll actually get a bit of petrify, a bit of willpower healing from those petrifies that get placed on you. So you should be fine. And moving on to the path. Now, while the iron is hot, this is the cheesiest path here. You can bring in your kitties, your Hyperions, your ghosts, because while the iron is hot, will let you access prowess buffs if you're being aggressive and if you can corner your opponent. Aggression Fury is relatively easily managed here, and Power Shield will obviously increase your special attack damage even further. So in combination, you can get 400% damage increase from Power Shield, up to 200% damage increase from while the iron is hot, and you can nuke down your opponents very quickly. That aggressive node here is also very helpful because that means that Aggression Fury will not do too much. And the only thing that you do kind of want to avoid to a degree is inflicting too many debuffs on the defenders, because that will reduce their debuff duration further. And that's about it. So again, Ghost, Kitty, Hyperion, or virtually any champions that you can use here. Just be aggressive, throw them against the wall, and enjoy the benefits from Power Shield. The champs that can spam special attacks obviously will be great. Note that there's like skill and science champions, so mutants and skill champions, will have class advantage at large for most part. But you can also definitely bring in some mystics, because there is the Aegon, the Shang-Chi, and the Elsa, which all have buffs that you can nullify and spout even more special attacks. The fight to kind of be wary of is obviously Void, because a massive Void, the fight can go badly quickly. So as long as you are aware of it, and you'll be just fine. But again, Kitty, Ghost can actually do all of these fights, for example. Obviously, you can also go Hercules route and so on and so forth. And this last one, I actually thought initially could be really awesome and very fun, but when I tested out a ton of champions, you couldn't really take much benefit from this unarmed stun node, regardless how I tried. And that had to do with the fact that you had to get them to the wall, knock them down, and by that time, typically steady perseverance buffs will activate and they go stun immune, and then you can benefit from that unarmed stun. So my best recommendation here is to pretty much ignore the benefit, or at the very least not focus on it, and then just go crazy with like Mystic Champions, because steady perseverance buff is a buff, right? So you will have something to nullify. So for instance, for me, Juggernaut absolutely tore through this lane. I'm sure that, Longshot and Dr. Doom and some other nukier Mystic Champions will do phenomenal here if they have access to nullify, because you will be able to push opponents past bar of power. They activate special attack, they gain a buff, which you can nullify. You gain power, so you can be super aggressive. And whether at some points you do or do not benefit from that unarmed stun node, it's helpful. For instance, with Doom, it's a very nice benefit, because with Doom you can throw massive heavy attacks, or you can passively stun the opponent or stun the opponent and then throw level 3, which will be a big bonus. But do not focus on trying to get the benefit from that stun. I tried like twice initially, because I thought it maybe could make a good video with that 400% damage bonus. But with vast majority of the champions that could extend stun or had some sort of mechanic that could let you damage opponents seriously during stun, for instance, like Domino Trinity, it just didn't work because of that stun immunity from steady perseverance. And then I just used Mystic Champions, and Mystic Champions absolutely tore through this lane like nobody's business. On top of it, also half the defenders are Cosmics here, or you also have like Ultron, Venom the Duck, Silver Centurion, Old Man Logan, Venom. All of the champions here are with buffs. So Mystic champions had an absolute field day here, and you're just going to have overall quite a good time. So yeah, Juggernauts, Dr. Doom's, Longshots, other Mystic nukes will do just fine. And then let's move on to the boss fight, and it's I'm going to be relatively quick because there's nothing too difficult here. Against Vision, the only real important thing is tunnel vision. Basically, you need to alternate your combos or you will get faltered. So if you use a champion that cannot miss, you're going to have much easier time, and then you only need to take a look at Vision's power gain. The other annoying thing here is that every time either champion gains a bar of power, defender gains an armor buff, and that reduces the debuff duration by 15%. So if you're too aggressive, then you can't really parry stun the guy, and it's harder to manage your combos. But in general, Magneto completely bypasses that and shreds this fight. You also have Human Torch as well. We have Hercules. Or alternatively, again, you can resort to those same Mystic champions and use that armor up node to effectively boost your damage. You still need to play around tunnel vision, but it's not the hardest thing. Just go parry medium light, or parry heavy, and then parry medium light, medium, parry heavy. You can alternate the combos. Playing around tunnel vision is not that hard without direct counter to tunnel vision. And then if you can consistently gain extra power from the power armor, the fight's not going to be too bad either. Moving on to Scarlet Witch. And Scarlet Witch, just do what they ask of you and the fight will be fairly straightforward. Use a Cosmic Champion to get the superiority underdog. You will get 40% base attack bonus, so basically it's going to turn your class disadvantage into class advantage. And then whenever a buff is nullified on the attacker, they gain an immunity to nullify, Fate Seal, and Stagger. And then, once you have that immunity active for 15 seconds, you're going to be gaining a ton of Fury buffs, dealing extra damage. You have special Fate Seal, Lockdown, underhanded thingies. None of it really matters too much here. Basically, just bring in Cosmic Champions, and you're going to have attack increase from superiority underdog and from the outburst as well. Once nullify immunity is active, you're going to be getting a ton of Fury buffs. So you can use Hulkling, is who I used. You can use Hercules. You can use, Silver Surfer, probably Hyperion. You guys get the point. Most of the Cosmic Champions that do not completely melt against Mystics, like CMM, will do just fine here. And you won't have too many problems. Because the nodes effectively make this fight relatively easy. And the last boss fight is a bit different. Now, there are few champions that have distinct advantages here. For instance, Ghost is going to do very well because of that breakneck speed node, where every time you strike the opponent, you have a chance to get a Whiplash passive on you. Every time you intercept the opponent, all the Whiplash passives on you get refreshed. And then when you knock the opponent down a special attack, you transfer those Whiplash passives on the opponent. This fight or flight node is actually quite helpful because with this node, you can get guaranteed intercept. If you manage it properly, you go unstoppable. Then you just can hold your block, wait for opponent to dash in and punish that. So that's a very easy way, if you manage this node well, to get free intercept with basically anybody. But ultimately, it is kind of like a skill-based fight. The champions that can do this fight the best overall, I'd probably go with Kitty, Juggernaut, Ghost, because all of them have very free and easy intercepts, or some champions that apply slow and you don't need to worry about fight or flight, and then you kind of rely on your own intercepting skill to transfer the whiplashes. Another champion that I actually used initially was Archangel, and obviously with Archangel you can just basically transfer all of these, well, you can shut down all of these nodes, so there's not much to worry about. So whichever way you go, it can work out. Omega Red, Archangel, or Ghost Kitty, all of those are very good options. Or you can virtually use any champion in this fight, as long as you can manage the intercepts and special knockdowns for those whiplash charges. That's about it for this quest. It was relatively straightforward, nothing too crazy here. So again, high voltage, your tech shock champions at Black Widow Deadly Origins, Contagion, just use your best science champions that you have in your deck, sorry, in your account. Tactical skateboard, buff heavy champions, probably gonna go largely with cosmics. The more buffs, the more damage you do. Henchman, your villains, and keep it as a rule when you want to parry after every opponent's special attack, and you'll be fine. This is gonna be quick and easy lane. Power shield, special attack spamming champions, or just virtually anything really. Asgardian hammer, as I listed, just use your best mystics. It's going to have an easy time because all of the defenders there have a lot of buffs, and that steady perseverance node can be a pain. So don't focus on that stun damage increase. Just focus on the fact that opponents are buff heavy champions and you have extra buff from nodes to nullify. Boss fight, Vision, against Vision, we go Hercules, Magneto, Torch, Surfer, Scarlet Witch, Sigil, Hulkling, Angela, CGR, Null, Hercules. Other cosmics are fine. Black Panther, AA, Ghost, Jags, Kitty, or any champ plus a bit of skill with the intercept. That's about it. So this is quest number 1. I will try to speed up with these guides as best I can. And let me know if these are useful. And if they are, hit that like button, hit that sub button. I'll catch you guys later. See ya. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about